No, I don't know. Wasn't listening, sorry.
The referendum.
Ready?
Yep. In my head.
Hey, good morning, everybody. We'll go ahead and get started. I'd like to go ahead and call to order the Fire Policy Committee here at DPSST on Oswego Highway in Salem, Oregon, and I have at 9:02. With that, I'm going to start with an administrative announcement. This is a public meeting, subject to public meeting law, and it will be digitally recorded. Deliberation of issues will only be conducted by the Fire Policy Committee members unless permitted by the chair. Remember to always state your name for the record. For cases dealing with denial or revocation, only information contained in the staff report can be considered once the staff report is adopted. Assumptions, outside knowledge, or personal experiences should not be included in any discussion. Individuals who engage in disruptive behavior that impedes official business will be asked to stop being disruptive or leave the meeting. Additional measures may be taken to have disruptive individuals removed if their continued presence poses a safety risk to the other persons in the room or makes it impossible to continue the meeting. With that, I have a number of agenda items today. We'll go ahead and start with the first agenda items with introductions. Madison, if you could do a roll call and staff introductions.
Yeah, we'll start with staff introductions this morning. We'll go ahead and start with Chantel.
Chantel Hawes, Fire Certification Coordinator.
Brooke Valley-Reedy, Fire Certification Supervisor.
Kayla Barr, Fire Program Manager, DPSST.
Phil Castle, DPSST.
Captain McAlpine, DPSST.
Good morning in back row.
Jennifer Howell, DPSST. Marie Atwood, DPSST.
Awesome. And I am Madison Mancuso, Fire Program Support Specialist. We will start with roll call of committee members now. We will start with Chair Heppel.
Present.
Perfect. Committee Member McGrew.
Present.
Committee Member Ponce.
Present.
Committee Member Carragher.
Here.
Committee Member Hopkins.
Good morning, present.
Committee Member Olson.
Here.
Committee Member Douglas.
Here.
Committee Member Lindauer.
Present.
Committee Member McLennan.
Present.
All right, and that concludes that. We have quorum.
Great, thank you. I just heard we do have a quorum. Next, we'll move on to agenda number 2, which will be approval of the minutes from our August 27th meeting, 2025. I'll just look around the room and see if everyone's had a chance to review the minutes. So shaking a head in the room, and some thumbs up and shakings of heads online. If there are any requests for modifications? A moment. Hearing none, then I'm just looking to confirm through a consensus approval of the previous meeting minutes. So I'll just look around the room. Got a shake on online, looking thumbs up. Thank you very much. So it doesn't appear to be any objections or changes, and we do have consensus for approval of those meeting minutes. All right, moving on to agenda item number 3. And this will be discretionary case review quick sheet, and we'll turn this over to Brooke with DPSST staff.
Thank you. I'm Brooke Valley-Reedy for the record. As we do with each meeting, I just want to quickly review why and how we move through the discretionary cases that come before the Fire Policy Committee. So in your book is just a quick sheet. But basically, DPSST needs to receive an application or an E1 form for fire certification. And if we find out that the firefighter has a felony conviction that occurred within the last 10 years from the date we received the application or E1 form, we will bring any non-Measure 11 felony convictions before the committee for review. If we receive an E1 or application form and the individual has a conviction of a misdemeanor, which within the last 5 years, the crime also has to include one of the following circumstances to qualify for review. Those circumstances need to involve dishonesty or deceit, a sexual offense, a drug offense, discrimination, destruction of property, crime against a public agency, illegal use or possession of a deadly weapon, or abuse, violence, or neglect against a person or an animal. Once the staff confirms that the case meets these parameters, we will prepare a staff report to present to the committee. The firefighter will be invited to present verbal and written mitigation to the committee, and then the committee will discuss the case in its entirety and determine to adopt or return the staff report. If adopted, the committee will make a recommendation to take action or no action to deny or revoke the firefighter certifications. Then the case will go to the board for affirmation. Are there any questions on this process? I know you've all heard this a few times, but since we only meet quarterly, it's good to just give it a little bit of a review. One other thing I wanted to note real quick, just in case anybody didn't see the email, we have removed Kyle Clark's case for consideration, as we didn't realize there was an error in printing, and so some of his case is missing. So we will move him to the February policy committee, just so that you guys will have ample time to review his entire case. And with that, I'll turn it back over to the chair.
Thanks, Brooke. With that, let's move on to agenda items number 4 and 5, which will be the review of those fire discretionary case reviews. We do have case number 4, agenda item number 4 is Christopher Wade, and they are here, so if staff could please retrieve him. Thank you. So just a reminder for the board, while she retrieves our mitigator, so I'll go ahead and read some of the rules to the mitigator first, just again, review the process, sorry. Once that's complete, we'll go ahead and I'll look for a consensus for adopting the record as presented. For a recommendation of action or no action. So that'll be our process as we kind of move through here this morning, just as a reminder.
Perhaps I could just confirm with those of us that are online. Did you also lose audio? Let me see if I can actually. Madison, a quick note.
Yeah, looks like they're working on it according to their chat. There we go.
Sorry about that. Just to make sure our friends over Teams all can hear us, yeah?
Yes.
Thank you. Sorry about the interruption.
Thanks, Dalton.
No problem.
Thank you for holding, you guys.
All right. We're back online. Excellent. Chief, thanks for joining us this morning. I'm just going to lay out a couple of rules here, and then we look forward to hearing your mitigation. You have 5 minutes to present a statement to the Fire Policy Committee. There are no questions or conversations between the Fire Policy Committee and the mitigator allowed. Once the time is up, the committee will discuss your case. You can stay for the discussion and the vote, or you may exit. That's your choice. With that, DPSST staff will take care of the timing component. They'll probably give you a little heads up, but I'll turn the case back over to them for presentation.
Chantal Hawes for the record. This case is for Christopher Wade. DPSST staff received a notice that Christopher Wade had been arrested on May 3rd of 2025. Staff tracked the court case and discovered that Wade was convicted of and pled guilty to disorderly conduct in the second degree and 2 counts of harassment, which are all Class B misdemeanors, on August 11th of 2025. This case requires review by the Fire Policy Committee because the conviction occurred within the last 5 years and the underlying conduct involves violence against a person. The following is a summary of the incident leading to Wade's arrest and conviction. On May 3rd of 2025, police responded to an assault involving Wade. According to the police report, Wade entered a bar after hours and initiated a physical altercation with 2 individuals. It was reported that Wade flipped over chairs, pushing them out of his way, then grabbed someone's drink and knocked a hat off of one of the victims' heads. Wade then proceeded to start a physical altercation with both victims, which involved shoving one victim in the face and taking the other victim to the ground. In their attempt to stop the assault, one victim was pushed into the wall. The victims described Wade being either intoxicated or under the influence of drugs due to his erratic behavior and physical strength. The police initially were unable to locate Wade at his residence or the fire department. Wade eventually contacted the police and stated he had been taking prescribed steroids, which might explain his behavior. Wade claimed that he felt threatened and one of the victims was the aggressor, though admitted to taking a drink off the bar and knocking the hat off of one of the victims. Wade's account of the evening differs from the victims, and both victims reported physical injuries and pain in the days after the incident. Staff found the following as relevant circumstances for consideration. Wade is the fire chief of Christmas Valley Rural Fire Protection District and was at the time of this incident. He was certified at the time of the incident. Wade's account of the incident is inconsistent with the 2 victims. He was cooperative during his arrest. Wade is on probation until August 11th of 2027. Wade owed the court $20 and as of today, November 19th of 2025, still owes the full amount. You will now have 5 minutes to present a statement to the committee. We'll set a timer for you as well. Chief Wade, would you like us to give you a 1-minute warning?
No.
Okay. I will, it will be visible for you, okay?
Okay.
You may begin.
Alright. First, I'll excuse my scruffiness. I get to grow a beard in the summertime when I'm fighting wildland fires, so when I go back on duty, this all gets shaved. So I wrote something down here. To the board, thank you for providing me with this opportunity to present my case. My life and career path that brought me here is a testament of my values of service and perseverance and dedication. This request is not about mitigating my personal reproach. It is about protecting the public safety and continuing the essential work I have devoted my life to. My journey began with overcoming significant personal adversity, including teenage homelessness. Through hard work and unwavering focus on giving back, I built a foundation centered on community and responsibility. I raised 3 sons who followed me into the public service as firefighters. For nearly 30 years, I have volunteered in my community, and for more than a decade, I have had the profound honor of serving as a fire chief. I did not receive this certification easily. I earned it by overcoming obstacles and demonstrating a persistence commitment to training and proficiency. As fire chief, my focus has constantly been on the long-term health and capability of our department, and by extension, the safety of our citizens. I have built and maintained a dedicated, well-trained crew and successfully applied for and maintained numerous grants to update our apparatus and facility. Most recently, this includes securing the critical seismic grant to transform our inadequate 1960s pole barn into a modern, safe fire department. These are accomplishments that speak not just to my knowledge, but to my persistence and ability to lead. I fully understand the seriousness of this single negative action that brought me here before you. However, I ask you to weigh the impact of the single mistake against a decade of sustained positive public service, and critically, the immediate and devastating impact my decertification would have on our community. The loss of my certification is a direct threat to our department's readiness and long-term future. I'm currently the only certified individual available to sign off on trainee task books and provide necessary final verification for new recruits. Without this capability, our young dedicated volunteers cannot gain certifications they need. This directly stalls our recruitment, hinders our ability to retain new members, and severely compromises our operational readiness. I created our junior firefighter program specifically to provide an objective, positive outlet for local youth who had no structure activities. Taking away my ability to train and certify the next generation will dismantle this essential pipeline of service and leadership to our community's young people. Regarding the incident itself, I want to be clear. I realize the impact of my negative actions and acknowledge the poor judgment displayed. This incident was a one-time isolated event that occurred while I was taking steroids prescribed for a debilitating neck injury. I had an adverse reaction that effects of which I was unprepared for. I have since ceased the medication entirely. The individuals involved filed no complaints or requested any charges. And I believe they would confirm that my behavior was wholly uncharacteristic of my normal laid-back demeanor. My error was a single deviation in my lifetime of service to punish this community, the ultimate beneficiary of my knowledge, hard-won certifications, and leadership. By removing my certification would cause disappropriate harm. My retention is vital to ensuring the continuing of service, the mentorship of youth, and the operational future of the department. So I respectfully request that you allow me to retain my certifications so that I may continue my 30 years of public service to the community that is needed. And I did write that down and I read it so I could read it and not be nervous. And yeah, that's all I got.
With that, I will turn it over to the chair to lead the rest of the process, which will be a consensus to adopt or return the staff report, a discussion of the case in its entirety, including aggravating and mitigating circumstances, and then make a recommendation of action or no action for the board.
Okay, let's we'll move forward with that process. The first is I'm going to look to the committee to adopt a record. For adoption of that record, I'm just looking for any consensus, or if there isn't adoption, what would be the objections? So objections are, looks like support. Online, I'm looking online. Okay, looks like I've confirmed the committee consensus to adopt the record. Next, we'll move on to a discussion of aggravating and mitigating factors. At this time, I'll go ahead and open up the case for discussion. Just simply as a reminder, if you could state your name before you start identifying any of those aggravating or mitigating factors. With that, before I officially open it up, I just want to ask a clarifying component that came up in just my reading of this particular case. If I was to go to Mr. Wade's letter here, he talks about DPSST and the removal of a prior training chief and fines and things like that. Can I get just the DPSST staff could shed some light on that piece as to what that happened?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Brooke Value review for the record. In reviewing the mitigation letter, it does state that DPSST contacted Chief Wade about possible fines and removal of a person. I would just like to clarify there does seem to be some misunderstanding. DPSST does not have the authority for the fire program to fine fine agencies for anything related to fire certification. We also are not involved in the hiring or personnel process. So the only way that we have any authority is related to certification. If an individual is found to not be able to hold fire certifications, the fire department still has full authority to hire or remove them. So that ultimate decision is up to the fire agency. So I just wanted to clarify that, and hopefully moving forward we can discuss that in the future, so that that's very clear between DPSST and your agency. Any other questions about any of that?
Not from me, with the board committee. Okay, with that, I'll open up the case to discussions.
If it's all right, I'll step out when you guys make a vote, just to make it more comfortable.
It's up to you.
That'll be your choice.
Yep, Caleb Allert for the record. You can remain for the remainder of the discussion, or you can step out.
I'll step out.
Alright.
Thank you guys for your time.
Thank you.
Chief Wade, we'll have you over here. We'll give you a call. We have your badge.
This is Claire McGrew. Maybe I'll open this up for conversation. I have just a couple of pieces for both aggravating and mitigating circumstances. I think the situation itself did involve two people, so certainly it wasn't an independent one action. And I did want to also, there's an aggravating component here where this is a fire chief, certainly held to standards that are probably a bit higher, just because they're leading the fire agency as well. I did appreciate the chief's mitigating his explanation of what was happening today, and I would consider parts of that mitigating circumstances to explain that this was a one-time single event, and I certainly heard that and also saw that reflected also in the documentation as well. He did also note at the end, which I would like to mention as well, for a mitigating circumstance, that he did realize the impact, the negative impact and the downstream effects that this would have in this. One question that I would have, and maybe I'll leave that on that, he did also include in his letter for addressing the charges, he did include that there was, he completed the anger management part of the agreement, which I would consider mitigating circumstances. But he was scheduled on October 14th, 2025 for drug and alcohol abuse assessment. And so I was wondering, and I had not seen if that was part of the record or not. So maybe I would open that up to the group. Thank you.
We can speak to that. So just to Burke Valley Review for the record, we did not see that it had been completed in the e-court system that we use. He did not address it. It may have been completed, but sometimes these things are entered fairly slowly. So we checked that, was it yesterday? This morning? Okay, so it had not been entered in there for completion. So So as of now, on his court documents, it's not been completed.
Thank you,
Then I
Claire.
would, Claire McGrew for the record, then I would consider that an aggravating circumstance as well if it has not been completed to date. Thank you.
Any other comments? Aggravating, mitigating factors from the committee?
I'll just say a couple things. Sean Olson, OFMA. As mentioned, the issue that I'm having with it is his level of responsibility. It's hard to get around that as a fire chief in circumstances like this and actions that he did that were so recent. So it's hard to not hold that position in the highest standard and professionalism and representation of his department, regardless of any, I don't know, I don't want to say excuses, but regardless of any actions that he's tried to do. So I'm a little stuck on that just because he is a fire chief and he's got to hold himself to a higher standard. So that's kind of where I'm at with it on one thing. And if the other aspect of it is, and I apologize if I didn't see it, but if I'm reading that correctly, that he went into the back door of the facility and just started throwing things. What triggered him? What was his mindset prior to going in? Was there something else that was going on? I don't know. So it's, I'm wishy-washy right now, but it's just more the fact that I can't get past the fact that he's a fire chief and this is a huge deal. And so, regardless of whether or not this is the only circumstance he's had, maybe his entire life, but it's just, he's at that level of a position where it's like this stuff can't happen. And if he's got to be able to take control of himself, he's got to have the mindset of being able to think about his actions prior to doing them ahead of time and just not do it. So that's where I'm at the moment with it. So.
Andy Ponce, for the record, I would echo everything Sean said. I think once you're a chief officer in department, you volunteer for those positions. I mean, no one forces you to become a fire chief, and you got to hold yourself to a higher level expectation. And I think going forward, he would have a very difficult time trying to hold the rest of his membership to that level of expectation. How can you enforce policy and procedure and expect them to be upstanding citizens when you cross that line? There's a line there for me that was definitely crossed. Can't be undone.
Kenny?
I have a question. Jack Carriger, the Oregon Volunteer Firefighters Association. Is there any kind of an effect between this process and its outcome that is affected by the expunging of the charges at a later date?
It's really a gray area because essentially it's that we found he did have a conviction at one point, and so these cases come before you because there was a criminal conviction on his record. If somebody eventually goes to get it expunged and we still see it, we would probably talk with DOJ for further advisement, but just because somebody had something expunged doesn't mean that they didn't do it.
Right.
So that is, it's a bit of a gray area. We don't have those cases come very often, thankfully, but I don't know if it was to be expunged. Since that hasn't happened now, it's not going to affect this process right now, if that makes sense.
Caleb Allrout for the record. I just also want to add that the way our fires cases are set up is if you do choose to take action, it's a year revocation. So within that time frame, if him or anyone else that you have revoked in the past does get something expunged, they could then, after that year, reapply, and you would be able to take that into consideration as well.
Thank you.
Just have one more, Sean Wilson, if I may. Andy hit on it just a bit, is one thing is like, yeah, you've got his error in judgment, but then the biggest aspect of it, what did he just do to his fire department? His morale, the people that he had respect for. I would struggle to think that those individuals now are struggling within themselves of a fire chief who just got arrested, and having respect for that individual for a very long time. I think regardless of the outcomes, is anytime a fire chief, you heard that your fire chief just got arrested, you're like, oh geez. Like, I know me personally, my view of that individual is going to change just a little bit. You try not to, but it's going to change just a little bit. You're going to lose that respect of that agency or your crew. So that would be another huge struggle. Regardless of all the great things that it sounds like he's done with that agency, he just lost a lot of traction on those actions on that day. So that's all I got.
Any other members, comments? Mitigating or aggravating comments?
So Andre Lindauer for the record. I see something, if I missed it, I apologize, but I don't see where the fine has been paid. And if I'm wrong, I apologize. I will say that the tone of all his mitigation, I realize he's not an accomplished public speaker, very few people are, but it was more about if negative action happens, then bad stuff's going to happen at the department. Less about taking accountability for his actions, especially at his elevated rank, and setting the standard for the department. It didn't hit me particularly sincerely, but again, I look at the public speaking aspect of it and the nerves, but both in the mitigation letters and in what he said, it rang a little hollow, and I realize that is incredibly subjective, but that is where I stand on that. And I would like a clarification if he actually paid the charges.
Chantal Haas for the record. I did look online today and it did show that he has not paid those fines.
Okay, I look at that as aggravating, along with the fact that he did not complete the drug and alcohol assessment. That's what I got.
Thank you, Andre. Any other committee members? Mitigating?
Andy Ponson for the record, I just, for a question, and looking through this, is it a fee or is it a fine or is it a fee? It looks like a $20 application fee on this. I don't know if that makes a difference or not, but that was the only thing I noticed.
Yeah, they don't really specify, sorry, Brooke Bellew for the record, they don't specify specifically what the fee is at, if you look on exhibit A4, page 3 and 4, it shows the $20. So whenever we let you guys know that there are fines and fees owing to the court, that is what that's referring to. So it doesn't break down specifically what that fee or fine is. So I'm sorry, I don't have more information about that, but it is something related to his case. And yeah, I do see where it says an application fee, but it is still outstanding.
Right. I was just, point of clarification, I was just curious. Thank you.
And we're still open for discussion on this case. Any mitigating or aggravating discussion points? Chris Huffle for the record, Chair. Just a couple of thoughts as we work in this discussion. One is I reflect upon what is a profession. And a profession is typically defined by two things. One is a group of individuals who have unique skills and abilities that are typically not found within any other career field in the normal population. And that's not in question when it comes to the fire service. The second one is that a profession is historically self-regulated. And we look at processes such as this, and that's one of the functions of this particular body or committee, is to be a part of that self-regulatory process within the state of Oregon as authorized by OER and ORS, looking at the behavior of those individuals who are part of this profession when it looks at it. So that's a piece that I'm looking at it. So when I hear things such as and I think Andre brought it up in terms of, well, if this does occur, this impacts my organization, or if this occurs, this happens in the community, or this or that. While I am respectful of that and I'm appreciative of that component, the behavior that is displayed as part of our profession and the associative downrange or downriver impact of that also has to be weighed into this component as well. Especially when we put somebody or an individual, especially at a rank such as this is not a firefighter with an isolated incident. This is a chief officer, which he espoused with 30 years experience in his own mitigating piece of dangerous situations, expenditure of potential individuals into dangerous situations, etc. And so I just want to bring that up as, for me, as to how I look at this lens, how that fits into this particular body and my perspective of it going forward. Couple of things. As a mitigating component, I appreciate his years of service and I appreciate what he has done for that area. As someone who recreates in that area on two-wheel vehicles, I appreciate the fact that there is a resource out there to come pick me up. So I just want to acknowledge that piece, that the need for that out there. On an aggravating component in reflection of his mitigation letter, the feeling I got from that was what I would term a lot of projection. And what I mean from that is, if not but for the prior training officer, we wouldn't have had these problems. If not but for the prior training officer was hired as a deputy sheriff, we wouldn't be having these problems in relationships. If not but for me being on prednisone, which he specifically defined, this wouldn't have happened. But there was no other contributory factor to that. The fact that for me, I understand the steroid component, but being a healthcare professional for 20 plus years, and I'm having difficulties drawing a conclusion as to his behavior tied to this medication, and that seems to be the basis of his argument, which I can tell you prednisone, which the way it's administered and it's utilized or whatever is not, it's an adjunct to the pain management component. So I'm not going to get into the medicine side. That's not what this board does. I will just say that I am having difficulties drawing a conclusion as to the side effects, utilization, proper utilization, administration, etc. of the medication and his story. I'm having difficulty there. For me, the way I feel about that is it ensues there's another underlying issue or problem. What that is, I don't know. But it doesn't feel like that piece has been rectified, whatever that is. And I think some of the committee members may have expressed that already. And so that's a component that I will leave in terms of my thoughts or my views as to how, as a professional in our profession, ties into what this committee does. And for me, I'm looking at the behavior component while being respectful of, I understand the community impact, etc. But that's not what we're here to deliberate. Ours is that of the behavior and the outcome, etc. of the individual. So with that, I'll turn it back to the committee. We're still open on the case of Chris Wade around mitigation and aggravating.
Rose Douglas for the record. Just to reiterate, and it's been said a couple times, just because this is a public meeting, just want to be careful with exactly what Chair Heppel had to say is that the mitigation, if the fire policy takes action, then it will negatively affect this organization. We didn't bring us here, and so that's not really the way we should be looking at it, is that our action of what, if we take action or no action, is going to then affect this organization. It is the action of the individual who is the fire chief of that organization that we are discussing today, and it would be his actions that negatively affect the organization, not the decision of the fire policy. And so I just want to make sure that we're very careful about that, and that the public, since it's a public meeting, understands that as well. And that we're looking specifically at the actions of the individual versus the outcome to the organization. So just wanted to reiterate that, and that if a fire chief is not held accountable, how can the fire policy move forward and hold other individuals accountable? I think that it can potentially set up precedents there, as well as aggravating. I think what I was hearing from people, and I agree, is that there seems to be an incomplete story here. And so it's hard to kind of understand what's going on when seems to be an incomplete story. So not taking responsibility for one's own actions, I would say, is an aggravating circumstance that I'm seeing. So.
Thank you. Chris Heppel, Chair, for the record, to DPSST staff. If action is taken in this particular case and there is a revocation for up to a year, my understanding is, and correct me if I'm wrong, that doesn't preclude him from still being with the fire department, still being the fire chief, still participating in training and doing those things. What he just is not in a position to do is to sign off training records, et cetera. I'll just leave it at et cetera.
Brooke Belly for the record, so fire certification in Oregon is completely voluntary. So it has really nothing to do with employment on the individual jurisdiction level unless they have a policy stating you have to be certified to be the chief or anyone in this department. So we would never dictate who a fire department can have on their department. As far as signing off on certifications, I mean, technically his certifications would be revoked. He could still be considered a content expert, so he could sign off on things, because even if your certifications are revoked, you still have that knowledge, same as if they were to lapse. So he could be a content expert and serve his department that way. So when we bring these forward, yes, we realize that there are cascading effects that this has, but we really encourage the policy committee to not consider employment ramifications, because that's not part of our authority. And then as far as, you guys have discussed, the individual's behavior and actions is really what is the purpose of this meeting. Does that answer your question?
Yes. Any other comments?
Let's make one more. Sean Olson, OFMA. Going back to the letter, I would expect, in my opinion, a letter to be written in a manner of, I royally screwed up, I apologize, I am humbling myself to this group that I royally screwed up as a fire chief. To be honest, for me, I don't wanna see anything that, hey, but this happened or this occurred, this person did this. Like, no, I did this and I screwed up. And it's hard for me to look at a letter and going back to the accountability portion of this individual royally screwed up. And if you really care about the position, you care about the department, you care about the certifications, you're gonna have a letter written that's gonna be like, this is what I did on this date, these were my actions only, I made a bad judgment call. Not a page and a half of throwing things out at other people and naming anybody else in this type of particular document of passing blame or anything like that, and giving a backstory. It's like, no, this was the circumstances, I screwed up, period. So I just wanted to get that out there because I know this is public record, public document, but as a fire chief making a bad judgment call, I would expect to see a significant apology letter to this in support of the sincerity behind the mess up. So that's all I have.
Anyone else? Mitigating or aggravating? Give it a few more seconds here. Okay. With that, I'll turn it back over to DPSST staff to review the identified aggravating and mitigating factors.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chantel Haas for the record. For the aggravating circumstances, we have Chief Wade is a fire chief and held to a higher standard. He's not completed the drug and alcohol abuse assessment. The level of responsibility to know going into situations should be held higher. Holding others to the standards is harder with that type of past behavior, so looking at his agency, the morale of that fire department could go down. He has not paid the fines. The incomplete story and the behavior showed in that, meaning the tone showed concern over the agency versus accountability of his own actions, as well as the written mitigation is presented more of a projecting outward to others, not to oneself. For the mitigating circumstances, it involved 2 individuals. Explanation of it being a one-time single event in both his verbal and written mitigations. He realized that it had a negative impact on himself as well as the agency, and he's completed the anger management assessment that he needed to do. Did I miss any of either of those circumstances?
Any to add? Claire?
Yeah, thank you, Claire McGrew for the record. I think, and I perhaps said this and perhaps confused it. I think it is aggravating that it included 2 individuals, but the mitigating was that it was a one-time event. I just want to make sure that that's clean on the record. Thank you.
Thank you for the clarification. Anyone else? Any clarifications or additions? Okay, with that, let's just confirm consensus on the identifying factors. So I'll just look at around the room and look for consensus. Looks like I do in the room, online, consensus. And I do online, we do have consensus of the identifying factors. With that, I will look for a motion and or an associative second to take action or no action.
Andy Bolton, for the record, I make a motion to take action.
And if you could provide just a brief statement as to why.
I think the behavior is unacceptable with the fire chief. Again, going back to holding us to a higher standard, and I think it will affect his ability to manage his organization.
Thank you.
Jack Carriger, second.
And you, just a brief statement, Chief, if you don't mind, as to that.
I find it disturbing that there really seems to be no willingness to take responsibility for this action throughout this whole process, throughout his own letter, where he states that he's intimidated by the DA and that his lawyer didn't lawyer up as well as he should have. And there just doesn't seem to be acknowledgement hardly of, yeah, I did this and I'm responsible for it no matter what anybody else does. And I understand that what I've done is wrong. And I think that's as I think you spoke to earlier, that's a downrange thing. I think this is something that, even though we don't know that it's happened before, if the psychological perspective of this gentleman isn't changed, then there's no reason for us to see that it couldn't happen again. And that bothers me.
Thank you, Chief. Any further discussion on the motion? Okay, so I do have a motion and a second to take action. There's no further discussion. Madison, if you could do a roll call vote.
Absolutely. This vote is to recommend the board take action on Christopher Wade's case. We'll start with Chair Heppel.
Aye.
Committee Member McGrew.
Aye.
Committee Member Carriger.
Aye.
Committee Member Hopkins.
Aye.
Committee Member Ponce.
Aye.
Committee Member Olson.
Aye.
Committee Member Douglas.
Aye.
Committee Member Lindauer.
Aye.
Committee Member McLennan.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Okay. And that should conclude agenda item number 4. Before we move on, just Chris Heppel, for the record, just recommendation for the staff is that I know you're going to follow up with Chief Wade, and as this was a public meeting and recorded, I just make the recommendation to him, as he chose to not be here, to listen to the discussion and maybe review this tape. Might be helpful. With that, move on to agenda number 5, and this will be the case of Clifton Boer. And this individual's online, if I believe so. So we retrieve the individual online.
Hello.
There we go.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir. Could you state your name for the record?
My name's Clifton Boer.
Hey, thank you, sir. For the record, Chris Heppel, Chair, Fire Policy Committee. Just going to take a moment here just to explain some rules as part of this discussion, and then I will pass it over to DPSST staff to present the case. With that, sir, you're going to have 5 minutes to present a statement to the Fire Policy Committee. There are no questions or conversation between the Fire Policy Committee and the mitigator allowed. Once the time is up, the committee will discuss your case. You may stay for the discussion and vote. You may stay for the discussion and vote, or you may exit. With that, okay. I'll turn it over to DPSST staff to present the case.
Thank
Okay.
you, Mr. Chair. Chantal Haas for the record. This case is for Clifton Boer. DPSST staff received notice that Clifton Boer had been arrested on February 5th of 2025. Staff tracked the court case and discovered that Boer was convicted of and pled no contest to disorderly conduct in the second degree, a Class B misdemeanor, on July 16th of 2025. This case requires review by the Fire Policy Committee because the conviction occurred within the last 5 years and the underlying conduct involves violence against a person. The following is a summary of the incident leading to Boer's arrest and conviction. On February 5th of 2025, police responded to an abuse allegation related to an incident that occurred earlier that day involving Boer. According to the police report, Boer stated to police that he had been in an altercation with his stepson after coming home to see that the stepson did not go to school and observed a bong intended for marijuana use in his room. Boer did admit to physically restraining his stepson and spitting in his face. In the police report, the stepson was also interviewed and stated that Boer had grabbed him by the throat with enough force to restrict his breathing and leave marks on his neck. Police observed scrapes on the stepson's knees and slight redness around the throat area. The officer observed throughout the interview that the stepson's statements were inconsistent and changed multiple times. Boer was arrested for strangulation and assault in the 4th degree. Staff found the following as relevant circumstances for consideration. Boer is employed by Albany Fire Department and was at the time of the incident. He was certified at the time of the incident. Boer remained calm and was cooperative with the arresting officer about the physical altercation with his stepson. It was reported that Boer and his stepson have had previous verbal altercations in the past. Boer is currently on probation until January 16th of 2027, and he has paid all of the court fines. You will now have 5 minutes to present a statement to the committee. We will set a 5-minute timer that will be displayed on the screen for you. Boer, would you like us to give you a 1-minute warning or not?
Yes, that would be great. And just confirming that you can hear and see me.
Correct. You may proceed.
My name is Clifton Boer, and I've been employed with Albany Fire Department since 2001. Becoming a firefighter fulfilled my childhood dream, and I've dedicated my career to serving my community with integrity and professionalism. In my 24 years as a paid firefighter with Albany Fire, I've never received a written reprimand. This makes it especially difficult to be before you today. I understand why DPSST is reviewing the situation. Upholding the integrity of our profession is vital, and we all want our brothers and sisters held to a high standard, myself included. I appreciate the opportunity to clarify what happened and to share the steps I've taken to ensure it never happens again. With the benefit of hindsight, I regret many of my actions that day. For context, my stepson was 16 years old and experienced significant behavioral issues that caused a great deal of stress at home. He had been drinking, skipping school, and smoking marijuana at school and at home, leading to multiple suspensions. His mother and I have tried to work with him, but Sam chooses not to have a relationship with me. On the day in question, I had just returned from shift. Sam was home claiming to be sick, but I found him and 2 friends drinking and smoking marijuana. I threw the bong away and Sam became angry and confrontational. I asked his friends to leave and Sam called my family racial slurs and raised his fist at me to hit me. I grabbed him, and as I pulled away, he fell onto his bed. I rolled off him immediately. He came at me again, and I restrained him briefly by holding his upper arms. We both ended up on the carpet, and again, I disengaged and moved away. I then called his father and came to come and get him. This was a difficult and emotional situation, one I had no idea how to handle in the moment. If I could redo that day, I would have just de-escalated or walked away sooner. I take full responsibility for my actions. However, it must be clear that I strongly disagree with the parts of the police report, especially the allegations that I choked Sam. That never happened. There was also omissions that left out key context, but time limits prevent me from addressing all of them here. I was prepared to go to trial to prove my innocence, but the financial and emotional toll on my family would have been severe. On my attorney's advice, I accepted a no contest plea to the lower possible charge, disorderly conduct. I did not admit guilt or agree with the facts in the report. The judge later reduced my sentence terms even further, requiring me to re-sign my plea agreement. I did not initially report this matter to DPSST or AOHA because I did not realize I had been formally charged. After one night in jail, my attorney even told me, "You haven't been charged with anything. I don't know why they took you into custody." I only learned of the reporting requirements later when I applied for recertification with OHA. I misunderstood my obligation, and I regret not following up sooner. What I can do now is ensure complete understanding and compliance going forward. Since then, I've reviewed OHA, DPSST, and Albany Fire Department policies on conduct and reporting. I've also completed court-ordered community service, currently in counseling and anger management. I also sought additional personal counseling on my own initiative before it was required. Learning from this event has been a personal priority. OHA has since closed its review of me, and my certifications have been renewed. At work, I have focused on supporting my crew, increasing training, and exceeding expectations as fire lieutenant. The support I've received from my department, from the fire chief to my fellow firefighters, has strengthened my resolve to continue leading with accountability and integrity. The support from my chief is shown by them giving me this time off to present my case to DPSST, as I'm supposed to be on shift today. My long record of unblemished service and the actions I've taken since this event show that it was an isolated incident that will never happen again. Thank you for your time, consideration, and continued trust. I take full responsibility and I'm committed to ensure nothing like this ever happens again. Thank you.
With that, I will turn it over to the chair to lead the rest of the process, which will be a consensus to adopt or return the staff report, a discussion of the case in its entirety, including aggravating and mitigating circumstances, and then make a recommendation of action or no action for the board.
Thank you, Chantel. Chris Upple for the record, Chair. So with that, I'll just look around and see if there agreement to adopt the record or to return the case.
Got a question.
Good.
Any Pullman Fire question, there's mention in the report of a strangulation kit, but I apologize if I missed it, I don't see the results of that kit. I know the police officers talk about going to the hospital to retrieve it and place it in evidence, but I didn't see the results of it.
Doesn't look like it was included in the police report that was given to us. If that is of concern to the committee, we can definitely go back for more information. So it would be, basically, you would not adopt the staff report if you want further information.
It is for me because that is one of the reasons for the arrest and the allegation, and there's question as to the validity of the minor's testimony there. And so that would make a difference for me.
Okay. Any other committee members around the adoption of the record? So right now I have a not to adopt, we would send it back and look for those items in which Chief Ponce requested. Anyone else?
I would agree with that.
Okay. Thank you, Chief Carrier. So do you agree with that? For Chris Upple, for the record, DPSST staff, if we sent this back, then I would assume I would expect we'd see this case again in our February meeting?
Correct.
At this point? Okay. Anyone else? Okay, what I have on the table then is a recommendation to return the case to staff for additional information. If that is correct, if I can get a consensus from the board. Okay, looking online. Okay, I have a general overall consensus to return the record for additional information as discussed.
Okay. And Mr. Gore, we will, you can go ahead and leave the meeting. So basically, no outcome has been determined yet, but once we finish up the rest of our meeting, we will go ahead and give you a call on the next steps, okay? Oh, he's muted.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, with that should close out agenda item number 5, which was a review of that case. That'll take us next to agenda item number 6, which is administrative action. With that, I'll turn it back over to DPSST staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chantel Haas for the record. The following are administrative updates for the committee, and no vote will be required. Thomas Barrett was discharged from Merle Fire Department on or around February 20th of 2025. DPSST requested the termination letter and underlining investigation that led to Barrett's discharge. Upon review, staff determined that Barrett's discharge meets the board established definition of discharge for cause due to his behavior of abuse against a member of the department while on duty. Staff issued Barrett a notice of intent to revoke certifications, and Barrett's fire certifications were revoked on October 7th of 2025. William Clark was discharged from Dundee Fire Department on or around January 11th of 2024. DPSST requested the termination letter and underlining investigation that led to Clark's discharge. Upon review, staff determined that Clark's discharge meets the board established definition of discharge for cause due to his behavior of harassment while on duty. Staff issued Clark a notice of intent to revoke certifications, and Clark's fire certifications were revoked on July 31st of 2025. Emmanuelson was discharged from Forest Grove Fire and Rescue on or around June 13th of 2024. DPSST requested the termination letter and underlining investigation that led to Sin's discharge. Upon review, staff determined that Sin's discharge meets the board established definition of discharge for cause due to his behavior of harassment while acting on duty. Staff issued Sin a notice of intent to revoke certifications, and Sin's fire certifications were revoked on July 31st of 2025. If there are no questions related to these updates, I will return this over to the chair.
Any questions from the committee on these three cases? Give me just a moment. Hearing none, that'll close out agenda item number 6 and moving on to number 7, which is agency update. And I guess we'll go to Director Castle or as designated.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Phil Castle for the record. The state has, I think the first thing I want to talk about, first thing I want to say is thank you to you all. This is a heavy responsibility that you have in this room. And I like to do this every time because it's a lot of your time. All of you have substantial jobs that you have to be at. And this is a huge commitment to be reviewing these and to be considering things in the way you are. So I very much appreciate your time here today. I also very much appreciate our staff's time. It takes a lot of work to prepare these, so I'm grateful to them for doing this. I sit on a committee called the LESC, the Law Enforcement Standards of Conduct and Discipline Committee. And this committee is a statewide public meeting committee as well, and it develops the rules that are to be used by law enforcement for discipline when it comes to employment. And the reason I bring this up because my responsibilities here as the secretary of the board and these committees is around moral fitness versus employment. And I spend a lot of time deconflicting in my head those two things. And those lines become very blurry. And the way I like to think of it is a employment action or an arrest or conviction triggers the review of that person's moral fitness. And you all have called this out in your discussions today and so forth, but I share this with you as maybe a way for you to be able to sort of separate in your head, okay, this employment action or this conviction or arrest is triggered us to look at this person's moral fitness. And then moral fitness, the way I think about it, is in two ways. One is the licensure to do the particular job that they do in public safety. So whatever certification is they have, that licensure requires the trust of the public, right? And have they done something to violate the trust of the public? This is not all encompassing, this is just a way and something that I use in my head to keep these things separate. And there are times when we sit on the committee where they say, well, let's just use DPSST's language. And I am very resistant to that. And I'm like, nope, we're talking about employment. This is moral fitness. These are two different things. There's a reason why the language is different for policy committees and the board than it is for employment and rules and policies around employment. So I just thought I'd share that as something helpful. You all have done an amazing job today with your deliberation. It makes the record very rich when you do that, and that is really what the public is hoping for. So I'm grateful to you all for all of that. I'll transition a little bit to talking about what's happening at the agency and what's happening in state government right now. You may or may not have heard there was an economic forecast somewhere to the tune of around $373 million of a deficit in general fund. This has caused the state to go through an exercise called the 5% exercise. Every agency was required to turn in a 5% reduction exercise. And DPSST is no different. We have done that. Which has us all sort of operating as efficiently as we possibly can in anticipation of, a potential of those reductions happening to the agency. Also noting that we are approaching, we are a quarter of the way through the biennium now, which means if those savings were to need to be executed, you have less time to make up that dollar amount that you have to achieve. The economic forecast was published today, actually this morning, and there was some good news with that economic forecast. We went from a $373 million to $63 million. So that's a substantial reduction in that upside down nature of general fund. However, the improved outlook is mostly due to a one-time boost from corporate income taxes. The primary reason for that, the deficit, is Oregon's association with federal tax code. There's an automatic association where if there are tax code changes at the federal level, they automatically impact Oregon's codes. We have that association. And as an example of that, no tax on tips, right? Which will impact the forecast, right? The state economist takes that into consideration, and that's where they generate those numbers. So those particular tax code changes are the reason why we saw that deficit. So that was good news today that we just received that. We are just finishing, or the legislature is just finishing legislative days today. Today is the last day of legislative days. Many agencies had to testify about their 5%. DPSST was not asked to testify about our 5% exercise. So we will see. We will see what happens during short session, which will be in February, and what that economic forecast looks like coming February. Other than that, DPSST is moving right along, and I want to pause here for questions that you may have of me that I'm happy to answer from the Fire Policy Committee before I turn it over to Kayla or Kathy if she has any additions she'd like to talk about.
Thank you for the update. Those exercises are never easy, so.
No,
Hopefully
they are not.
Everyone keeps their heads up and just keeps going and hoping for the best, because I dread those.
Yes, yes.
So at this point, DPSST has not canceled the holidays.
We have not. Matter of fact, we're going forward with our holiday party. We're gonna do it up.
That's important.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Director. Catherine Calpine, Deputy Director for the record. The only thing I would add is, in these unprecedented times when we're listening to those who did have to present to PubSub, what resonates with me is what Rep. Evans said in closing. And obviously this is good news if we actually did lower it down. But in these times of trying times, is when innovation comes. And so what I'm gonna say to all of you is, and I'm sure Phil and I will be messaging to all the other committees, is if there's opportunities in your agency where we always work in a silo, how do I reduce 2.5 or 5%? But is there ways to collaborate and maybe lessen the impacts, or maybe it's 1% here, 1% over there. So I don't know what it is on top of mind, especially in the fire disciplines, but if there's opportunities, I just want to extend an open invitation to explore opportunities that might benefit our constituents and how DPSST can operate in the future if there's some efficiencies and innovations that might come out of all of this. So that's just my open invitation to all of you. And thank you, Chair. Kayla?
Thank you. Kayla Ballrop for the record. Well, with the federal government shutdown ending, that means National Fire Academy is back. Luckily, this affected us in Oregon relatively minimally. We had already had some National Fire Academy classes planned during their shutdown. And because we had instructors already lined up, they had already kind of processed it somewhat in their system. They said, go forth and conquer, continue to bring these instructors out to Oregon, and we were able to do that. So we actually had quite a few classes during the shutdown. We're now just working with them to make sure that the folks that went through the classes are getting credit through NFA. So that was kind of our biggest hurdle, is their website was down. We couldn't get the portal to work. So we're working with them right now. Madison is, in order to make sure that they get credit for what they took. And then we're moving forward with Winter Fire School. So as you know, we have 9 National Fire Academy classes happening during that time. So now that they're back, we're feeling a little bit better about having Winter Fire School and being able to have that be a success as far as the National Fire Academy side goes. Registration for that is going really well, so that is in February. A lot of the classes are full, so it's important to remember if any of your firefighters are taking any of those classes and they can't show up for whatever reason, just let us know. We'll be happy to cancel their order because we've already got people on wait lists. So, out of the 300 and some spots, 270-ish are already taken. So we inevitably will have no shows, but we try to avoid that as much as possible. So just as a reminder to you all. We also have, we'll have Support Person Academy during the Winter Fire School. So that still has spots if anyone is interested in that. We are also having a few Support Person Academies leading up to Winter Fire School just to kind of test it out. So we've got a couple of fire training staff that are kind of leading the charge on that. And they're going to put a couple on to make sure that, just kind of they're working with fire departments just to kind of make sure that they get the kinks out, and we were able to kind of make that a success. We also kind of wrapped up the 5 Corners plan. So just as a reminder for the year at least, just as a reminder, the 5 Corners plan was a partnership between the law enforcement regional side and our fire training regional folks to put on joint training across the state. So we had the most recent one, and the last one planned for the year was the end of October. We had an off-road vehicle operator class in just outside of Roseburg. It was a great success. They had been asking for this class for a while, and we were finally able to find a location. So that was great. And I think I mentioned last time, basically a bunch of firefighters signed up immediately, and we only had like 2 law enforcement people in the class, but that's okay. They really were very excited about it. I think as soon as the registration dropped, they pretty much all took the spots, but we'll have, we'll try for another class in that area again, so that, we'll maybe give law enforcement a little bit more of a chance to sign up for that one. And then on the certification side, the NFPA driver series just updated. So that is an Oregon administrative rule. That's something that you all reviewed a while ago and recommended those changes to the board. Changes were relatively minimal. There were some updates to like maintenance, JP, job performance requirements and things like that. But all of the forms and task books and things like that have been updated on the website.
And Brooke will also update the guide to certification as well, just to have some explanatory material around it. And that will be posted on the website soon. And then we just have the Airport Firefighter Task Force, so you'll be seeing those updates likely in February, potentially. So minimal changes with that as well. For those of you who have airports and airport firefighters, nothing too drastic is coming forward, but we will have that prepared and presented to you in the Fire Policy Committee in February, likely. And with that, I think that concludes my report, unless anyone has any questions for me.
Chris Huffle for the record, what is the status of the LMS system?
Phil Castle for the record. You know, Ms. Caleb turned from the chair and looked at me. It's moving forward. So learning management system is moving forward. We're starting the procurement for a project manager at this moment. So, and we got the green light to go ahead with that.
Cool. Thank you. Anything else from staff or agency updates? Questions, comments from policy? Just a couple things. First of all, thank you for the National Fire Academy update and P component. I attended the 0310 class over at OEM, and it was slamming full. And the fact that we were able to get that pushed through is going to make a big impact across the state of Oregon. So thanks for just the work to keep that going, and to the National Fire Academy for keeping that going, because that was not an easy class to get, and it will certainly have an impact going forward. Lastly, I look forward to being a student this year at Winter Fire School, and that'll be exciting. I really look forward to that piece. All right, round table, anything else? Okay, hearing none, I'll go ahead and close the Fire Policy Committee meeting for November 2025 at DPSST on Amsoil Highway at 10:23, with the next Fire Policy meeting scheduled for February 25th, 2026 at 0900. Thanks for everybody being here.
That was some of the